It's Friday, December 2nd, and this is now on HNN.
The lava flow coming out of Fissure 4 is basically stagnant at this point.
Mauna Loa's lava flow continues on a slow path, but only one fissure is still active.
For 1 million people were likely exposed to this toxic water during that time period.
A mainland military base's tainted water has prompted thousands of claims, but victims are still waiting for closure.
Americans are getting ready to travel in 2023. I'm Bradley Blackburn with Condé Nast's recommendations for where to go before you book your trip.
These stories, plus we're getting ready for the Honolulu City Lights celebration. Details coming up on This Is Now.
Hope you're having a great Aloha Friday. You got Jonathan and Ashley right here in the HNN Digital Center. Want to start with this, an amazing live video feed coming into the HNN Digital Center of Hawaii Island and the latest eruption. Check that out.
Yeah, so the lava from Mauna Loa continues its slow advance toward the Daniel K. Inouye Highway. Officials say it could take about a week for lava to reach the roadway, which is now about 2.7 miles away.
The primary control right now in terms of how the lava flow front is behaving is largely a function of the topography at this point. So it got down to the base of the slope there. It's spreading out. It's kind of piling up into itself. So assuming that there are no dramatic changes in terms of the output or a new fissure or thing like that, then it's primarily a control of the topography itself along with the characteristics of the flow and how likely it is to pile up on itself as opposed to backing up or spreading out or things like that.
At today's media briefing, the HVO's David Phillips emphasized the ongoing eruption poses no threat to residents of South Kona or Ka'u. He said the latest reports show that the lava is erupting at an estimated rate of 50 to 100 cubic yards per second. The USGS has stressed it's still not certain if the lava will reach Saddle Road. Also, new today, we've learned only one fissure, Fissure 3, is still active.
Over the last couple of days, it's really just the lava flow from Fissure 3, which has been posing the threat to the Saddle Road, and that continues to be the case. The flow from Fissure 4 did get down far enough so that it also crossed the Mauna Loa NOAA Observatory access road a couple nights ago, which the Fissure 3 flow had cut off a couple of nights before. But the Fissure 4 flow was not an imminent threat to the highway at any given time. So in terms of the threat situation, the inactivity at Fissure 4 now really hasn't changed anything. We're still focusing on watching Fissure 3 and the flow coming from that.
As crowds flock to view the new eruption, Hawaii County Mayor Mitch Roth says nearly 2,000 cars went through the new traffic mitigation route last night. Hawaii County Police say 4 citations for parking were given out on Thursday and 24 in the 2 days prior. Chelsea Davis has the latest.
I'm on the old Saddle Road, which is just off of the Daniel K. Inouye Highway, directly across the street from the Gilbert Kahele Recreation Park. County, state, and federal officials all work together to open this road up so that the public can have a safe viewing area of Mauna Loa. And really, it was also because the park and the highway was getting so congested, it was causing a safety concern. We're hearing that there were several crashes along the highway, and also county workers at the park just not being able to keep up with the volume of people who were coming in. So they really worked hard to get this road open. They just announced it yesterday, and county crews were out here all day yesterday setting up signage and cones to let people know exactly where they need to go. It's about a 4.5 mile long stretch, this old Saddle Road. They're allowing one way in, one way out, and there are also security guards all along the way just directing traffic. They're asking people to stand and to park their vehicles on the right-hand side of the road. That is the side closest to Mauna Loa. To let that left side of the road closest to Mauna Kea open for emergency vehicles only in case there's an emergency for whatever reason. Officials are asking people to stay no more than 90 minutes at a time and stay close to their vehicles. They're asking people not to wander off, especially at nighttime. This area can get very dark. They don't want people traveling and venturing out. It can be very dangerous. They don't want anyone to get lost or get injured as well. So again, this is the designated viewing area as well as the Gilbert Kahele Recreation Park, but that is a smaller area. As I mentioned, this is a 4.5-mile road, open, the old Saddle Road. So come on down. Officials want people to get this beautiful unobstructed view of Mauna Loa, but they want people to do it safely. Not only is parking along the highway dangerous, it is illegal as well. Anyone caught parking along the highway can face a $1,000 fine, and we are hearing that people have been getting ticketed. So come on down to the old Saddle Road. It is open 24 hours a day to get your beautiful picture-perfect view of Mauna Loa. That's the latest from the base of Mauna Loa. Back to you.
Just listen to that new Earth being born. Fissure 3 continues to be the dominant of fissures on the Northeast Rift Zone. Its lava fountains constantly throwing molten lava bombs nearly 100 feet into the air. Over time, these bombs cool, and around the base of the fissure, they build up a splatter cone. You can see that right here. So Fissure 3 has produced several lava channels that are winding their way down the volcano. These channels are surrounded by these levees that insulate the lava and keep it fluid and moving brisk downslope. As it cools, it can form black crust at the top in some places. And check this out, those lava channels can branch and weave and rejoin each other in several different places. All this lava heading to that flat saddle area and slowing down.
One of the things that could happen is we're pushing lava into that flow front and it's kind of inflating. It's like a bit like a balloon. But if that lava gets too stiff, it's possible that the channel will back up, or channels often fail too on these steeper slopes. So then they could have a breakup, but we don't know if it breaks out on the east side of a channel or the west side of a channel. That will really determine where the lava goes. So we can't actually predict or forecast, those kind of breakdowns.
A big shout out to USGS for providing those photos and video you just saw in that report. Awesome stuff. So if you like looking at this amazing imagery, just head to our H&N digital platforms right now. We have a gallery published right now at this moment of more than 500 viewer submitted photos. They're really cool. Check them out, please. Again, that's at our H&N digital platforms.
While the Red Hill tainted water crisis continues to unfold here on Oahu, lawsuits are building around another ecological disaster for the U.S. military. Nick Watt has more.
If you were stationed or working at Camp Lejeune,
you may be eligible for significant financial compensation.
Please give us a call.
You've probably seen the commercials. Lawyers lining up to help veterans in return for a slice of a potentially huge money pie. Huge because the water at this vast marine base in North Carolina was contaminated over 30-plus years by an off-base dry cleaners, leaky storage tanks, and chemical dumping. 1953 to 1987.
Potentially, how big is this?
Over 1 million people were likely exposed to this toxic water during that time period. And what does that mean in terms of damages? I mean, it's off the charts.
Greg Sexton's mum saw one of the commercials, their first inkling that Camp Lejeune's water might be to blame for what happened to him.
So I spent the summer there in 1977. I was 8 years old. I was spending time with my father, who was in the Marines. He was a sergeant in the Marines. When I was 17, I was diagnosed with what's called a Wilms tumor.
He had kidney cancer, one of the diseases now potentially linked to those chemicals in the water on the base. A base where Ann Johnson lived with her Marine sergeant dad, where she met her future husband in high school, where she gave birth in 1984.
They didn't bring her to you immediately, no?
They did not.
I guess they were trying to prepare me for what she looked like.
Anne's baby, Jaquetta, lived just 7 weeks, aged 18 and forced into an horrific decision to let her daughter go.
I looked at my husband and he just dropped his head, not knowing what to say. And so I looked up at the doctor and I said, just let her go.
Birth defects also now potentially linked to those chemicals in the water on the base. Here is the history. In 1980, tests found water is highly contaminated. In 1981, water highly contaminated with other chlorinated hydrocarbons, solvents. The most contaminated wells weren't closed for 4 years after further testing. In February 1985, PCE, a dry cleaning solvent, was measured at 43 times the current EPA limit for drinking water here in Tarawa Terrace, which houses enlisted men and their families. 2 months later, the base commander sent them all a letter. 2 of the wells that supply Tarawa Terrace have had to be taken offline because minute trace amounts of several organic chemicals have been detected in the water. No health warning, just a request to reduce domestic water use because supply was now limited. Apparently, a mass health warning didn't come until much later, 14 years later.
Certain areas, water was super contaminated. Other areas, it wasn't. The Marine Corps barracks, right? The Bachelor barracks, that was in the areas where the water was tainted.
Large sections of the base used by officers and enlisted alike were affected. Van Arsdale asked his 6,000 or so clients, what rank were you when you were exposed to the water at Camp Lejeune? 96.3% of respondents say they were enlisted. 3.7% were officers. Worth noting, there were always more enlisted men than officers on base. An act of Congress, passed in August, allows Marines and their kin to file civil claims.
Some simple acknowledgement would be my wish for everything moving forward.
The Navy has 6 months to process their claims.
They've received almost 5,000 claims as of today. They have not yet done anything about any of them.
Do you think any of the claims that you filed so far will actually be processed within the 6-month window?
As of today, I do not.
And if not, claims could end up in a courthouse in the Eastern District of North Carolina.
But litigation could take years to even get inside a courthouse.
It really could. I think that they are too worried about how to defend themselves than focus on what they should be doing, and that's to make these lives better of the men and women who are suffering today.
Rather than it being me, that it could have been the water that I consumed and the government could be responsible for what I went through. My ex-husband went on to remarry and have a couple of more children, and there was nothing wrong with them. Jaquetta had to be me because his other kids were fine, so it had to be me.
That was Nick Watt reporting there. All right, want to remind you, speaking of the Red Hill water crisis, we have a special report right now on our HNN digital platforms. Red Hill, 1 year later, a special investigation our Mahealani Richardson has put together, and it is now posted. It's also on YouTube if you want to check it out. All right, let's take you live. They're zooming around that camera right now over there on the Big Island. When it was just pulled out just a second ago, you could see some snow on top of the summits, but it's not the snow people are looking at today. It's all about lava. And talk about extensive coverage we got for you. Check out those HNN digital platforms if you got a chance. We have a whole page made right now of all our lava coverage, tons of video, tons of images, and tons of just real people telling their stories right now on our special eruption page at your HNN digital platforms. So what's the air quality going to be like? Guy Hoggy's looking into just that.
Now, with all that fog and exhaust coming out from Mauna Loa, and with the light winds over the last couple of days, you'd think that we'd have a fair bit of, hazy skies out there, but that hasn't been the case. And here's why. It's because mainly Mauna Loa is much higher. We're talking at almost 14,000 feet. The VOG source before that was Kilauea, down at 4,000 feet. And because of that, it's higher up in the atmosphere. That VOG is going up there, not getting down to sea level, unlike Kilauea's VOG that we've been dealing with for years. And also there's that fact that very little circulation is bringing that VOG down to the surface. So most of the VOG is moving up and to the north because of those prevailing southerly winds there. And Kilauea, again, is closer to sea level. Now, we are going to get showers for some leeward areas early next week as a front approaches and drops in. But for today, tomorrow, and for a large extent Sunday, we're not going to see a whole lot of rain aside from some overnight and early morning showers for windward areas. So overnight, early morning hours, we'll see some showers through the weekend. And then those trade winds firming up today. But as that front drops in, Kona winds move in on Sunday and more rain expected Monday and Tuesday. Could be a little damp for Monday and Tuesday.
Well, a 6-month experiment testing the 4-day work week with dozens of companies just wrapped up, and organizers say it may be better for business. So, could this be the future? Mike Valerio joins us now with the results. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Ashley, you know, of course, this is the best story to do for all of us working on a Friday. And the data, as you mentioned, it suggests that a 32-hour, 4-day work week is not just better for people, it's better for profits.
A shortened work week sounds pretty good, right? But is it good for business? Millions switched to remote or hybrid work during the pandemic. Commuting time was scrapped, meetings got shorter or were done virtually. And the question of whether or not a traditional work schedule was necessary got louder.
We just saw people that were burnt out and tired.
So 33 companies with a total of 903 employees signed up to participate in a 6-month trial with the nonprofit called 4-Day Week Global and researchers at 3 universities.
The requirements are no reduction in pay, so all employees are still getting their 5 days pay. And there must be a meaningful reduction in work time.
Organizers say the trial was an overwhelming success. None of the 27 companies that completed the post-experiment survey said they were planning to go back to the 5-day work week.
The productivity is up, not down, from 4 days versus 5. How can I possibly argue to this building of intelligent human beings that I want to put them back on 5 days?
Workers reported lower levels of stress and fatigue. Company revenue was higher compared to the year prior, and some managers reported that having an extra day off gave their staff more energy to do their jobs.
One of the big benefits we've seen is just the perspective and almost kind of freshness that people bring to work with them.
And one 2021 survey showed that 70% of workers in America would support a shorter work week, while only 9% oppose.
And Ashley, this study was conducted by Boston University, Cambridge University, and University College in Dublin. 3 heavy hitters right there. There is a larger test, a larger study that's being completed right now, and we have a feeling that the results might be the same. That's the latest from here in Los Angeles. Ashley, let's send it back to you.
Now, Mike, there is precedent for the federal government working this kind of schedule, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, there's flex time that the federal government developed a few decades ago in the mid-'80s where people worked 4 days a week, every other week. I'll tell you, my mother, when she worked at GAO in Washington, D.C. in the 80s, was certainly a beneficiary of that. But, you know, there's also renewed conversation about what our work schedules are going to be. This 5-day a work week was conceived in the early 20th century, so there's no written rule that it has to stay like that. And since here on the mainland, we've had the threat of this rail strike looming over the late summer and into the past few weeks or so, there are renewed conversations about what our work schedules should be like and whether or not this could be, you know, a political talking point as we slowly make our way to 2024. More people are talking about what we want our society to look like, Ashley.
I was going to say, with that polling they did with the vast majority of people supporting something like this, I'm sure we will be seeing this in future political campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. Understatement of the afternoon of the day right there.
All right, Mike Valerio joining us this afternoon. We appreciate the time, Mike.
Well, it's already December. Yeah, I know. That year went by fast. But many of us are already looking to next year, planning those vacations. And if you want some inspiration, Condé Nast is out with the 23 top destinations for 2023. Bradley Blackburn reports.
A recent survey found 58% of American travelers have a leisure trip planned. And with COVID restrictions eased in most places, Condé Nast Traveler has some suggestions on where to go.
Well, Western Japan and Queensland, Australia are both places you couldn't visit the last time we did this list. So a big thing is borders reopening on this list, which is super exciting.
Condé Nast Traveler's Jesse Ashlock stopped by CBS Mornings to reveal their list of the 23 best places to go in 2023. In addition to Western Japan and Queensland, Australia, he explained why now is the time to plan a visit to Egypt.
Finally, at last, the Grand Egyptian Museum is opening next year, right in the shadow of the Giza pyramids. And perhaps fittingly, it's the 100th anniversary of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb.
Two destinations closer to home made the global list: Memphis, Tennessee, and the Central Coast of California. The magazine also put out a separate list of just U.S. locations, including Macon, Georgia, home to thousands of ancient artifacts and a rich musical history.
Birthplace of Little Richard, birthplace of Otis Redding. Just outside of town, Okmulgee Mounds Historic Site is a place with these earthworks that are thousands of years old, likely to be our next national park.
Also on the list, New York's Hudson Valley, which has recently become a spa and wellness destination. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
I checked it out. Hawaii did not make the list, at least from my glance at it. So, all right, let's see what else the internet is talking about. I love this story every year. Pantone out with its color of the year, and here it is. Check it out.
Ooh.
Viva Magenta. Yes, Pantone says the nuanced crimson tone balances warm and cool and is unconventional shade in this unconventional time. It's inspired by the natural red dye derived from small insects. The company said the shade reconnects us to original matter and invokes the forces of nature. Okay, Pantone. Pantone has named a color of the year annually for more than 2 decades. My favorite in recent times was coral. It was just like a sort of salmon-y coral.
Yeah.
I can't remember what last year. I want to say it was blue, but I
I
can't
love
remember.
how they come up with the color names too.
Yeah, right?
Viva
I
Magenta.
take that job. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, this is really exciting. So, a musical using the discography of pop star Britney Spears is heading to Broadway next year. The show is called Once Upon a One More Time, features stories about Cinderella, Snow White, and other fairy tale princesses, but with a feminist twist on all the tales. So the musical incorporates popular songs from Spears, including Oops, I Did It Again and Toxic. Once Upon a One More Time kicks off with previews at Broadway's Marquee Theater on May 13th, opening night set for June 22nd.
Everybody getting a musical. Carole King, Cher. I mean, the list goes. Back to the Future. That's what I want to see next year. So, a lot of cool stuff.
Lots to look forward to. So you've heard the saying, a deer caught in headlights.
Oh.
Well, what about a deer caught in holiday lights? That's exactly what happened in an Oregon neighborhood where officials say an unlucky buck was spotted sporting a tangled mess of lights since before
That's terrible.
Thanksgiving. Oregon Fish and Wildlife officials were able to catch the animal and sedate it long enough to remove the lights. They say it's really common for antlers to get tangled in things like hammocks, volleyball nets, and even holiday decor.
Volleyball nets. Who
Poor
knew?
guy.
Yeah.
And speaking of holiday decor,
Yes.
Honolulu City Lights will officially open tomorrow. The city Christmas tree just got its star. Final preparations are being made for opening night. The festivities start at 4 with a block party on Punchbowl Street near the Frank Fosse Civic Grounds. The Public Workers Electrical Light Parade will make its return starting at A'ala Park at 6. Mayor Blangiardi will flip the switch to illuminate the Christmas tree at 6:15, and then concert performances will kick off at 7:30. More information about all the events up online at hnlcitylights.org.
I can't wait to see Shaka Santa.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be down there this weekend. Looking forward to it. Love it every year.
It'll be packed.
Yep. All right, guys, that's it for This Is Now. Coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to replay that press conference from the USGS on your HNN digital platforms, and Ashley will have all your eruption updates coming up first at 4.
Happy Aloha Friday.